chewing on a piece of grass, walking down the road. Tell me, how long you gonna stay here, Joe? Some people say this town don't look good in snow. You don't care, I know. Ventura Highway in the sunshine, where the days are longer, the nights are stronger than moonshine. You're gonna go, I know. Cause the free wind is
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to the Celebration of Life service for Robert Kurbis. My name is Chase Findell. I'm the pastor at Church. We are Nick and Megan and I'm glad to welcome you today to celebrate Robert's life. We have a service planned to illuminate so many aspects of who he was as a person. As we set the tone for the service today, just want to remind you of how important this is in the step forward of healing. You know, Celebration of Life services, oftentimes we get dressed up, we see people we love, and there's a sense that we don't know how to feel at times. Maybe as you share a story, you want to laugh, and I would just say that today's a great day to laugh as you remember stories about his life. Today may be a day that you want to cry. Today's a great day to cry with people you love as he's no longer with us. You may want to embrace one another. It's a great day to heal through the process of being together and embracing one another as every one of us grieves in different ways. And so today I just invite you to feel all of the feels required in stepping and moving forward in the healing process today. As we walk through the service today, I want to say thank you for being here. Your presence in this place today is a tremendous encouragement to the family. And on behalf of them, we say thank you for being here and being present for the Celebration of Life service. We're going to begin this service with Robert's daughter, Megan, reading his eulogy. Megan?
Good afternoon. Most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, I'm Robert's youngest child, Megan. This is his son, Ben, and Cole. Maybe you knew him as Bob or Bobby. Many of you knew him as Bob the Builder, and there are just 6 of you, lucky ones over here, to call him the Papa. Losing our father is the most difficult thing the 3 of us have gone through. As we stand up here today, we realize how incredibly fortunate we were to have him as our dad. Robert Bruce Kurbis was born on September 26, 1954 in Vernon, British Columbia, to Wilfred and Evelyn Kurbis. In his 68 years of life, my dad was the wild younger brother to 2 brothers and a sister, a hard-working father to 2 daughters and a son, a papa to 3 girls and 3 boys, one hell of a contractor, and the best husband and partner my mom could have ever asked for the last 48 years. My dad grew up loving ice hockey and water skiing in British Columbia. He spent some time as a cabinet maker and volunteer firefighter before he became Bob the Builder. He married Melissa on November 1st, 1974. They left Canada in 1976 and started their family in Washington. Their first children were 2 hairy English shepherds named Liza and Mac. Soon they had 3 children together and were running a successful construction company in San Diego. The past few weeks, our family received so many messages of condolences about what an amazing, kind, funny man he was, and this brought us so much joy and comfort. So thank you for your kind words. The one thing that stuck out to all of us is how many people told us that it was so apparent that Bob lived for his family, and family came first to him always. He really did live to be a husband, a father, and a papa. Although he was no saint by any stretch of the imagination, He was a great man. He gave so much and was always selfless. He made everyone who came into his home feel like a part of the Kurbis family. Our dad traveled a lot for work when we were growing up, but when he came home, he jumped right into dad mode, coaching our sports teams, and always made sure that we had one-on-one time with him. My one-on-one time with my dad was always deep sea fishing. Ben got to go to Family Fun Center with him, and Nicole always got to go horseback riding with him. We will always cherish those father-daughter or father-kid dates we got with him. One of his favorite things to do when he got home from work was to get on his tractor, put his hat on, and mow that giant piece of property he was so proud of all day. When a new neighbor bought the property next door and didn't own a tractor, my dad drove his John Deere over and mowed his large overgrown land for him. That's just the kind of guy that my dad was. He was known for his Bloody Marys, his margaritas, and his gazpacho. And for a man who hated chicken so much that he referred to it as yard bird, he sure did love KFC. Another thing most people knew about Bob was that you could bribe him to do almost anything for a batch of homemade brownies. The man had such a big sweet tooth. His favorite place to go with his grandkids was Pepper Tree to get a chocolate-dipped cone. And growing up, we did so many fun family lake vacations, mostly in Canada to see his family, filled with his siblings, nieces, and nephews. Uncle Bob, to his nephews and his niece up there, he was best known for driving a boat like a maniac and trying to throw you off of the tube as quick as he could. The tradition started as we were children, and the last trip we took in 2014, we were all adults and some of us even had children at the time. He was still throwing his grown children and nephews off the inner tubes and enjoying them cursing him out. He laughed so hard that day on the lake, watching all of us fly everywhere, and he took us for hours. My parents got to take a dream vacation a few years ago to Greece and Italy. My dad drove them around on a moped, and he loved taking in all the food and history. He spoke often to my mom about wanting to go back one day again. He was not a man who would tell you how he felt, but he expressed his love through actions. He helped each of us with multiple house projects. You'd call him to ask his opinion or get ideas from him, and the next thing you knew, he was at your house ready to work. When Nicole and Craig bought a house in Oregon, they asked for his opinion on remodeling their kitchen. And then Dad hitched his tool trailer to the truck and drove 12 hours in the middle of the winter to Oregon to remodel their entire kitchen. He was and still is our rock. We know he will always be with us, and he will hold this family together. Thank you.
It's so obvious how tight-knit this family was, and many of you know that as you know them very well. We wanted to try to capture Robert's life in pictures. And so enjoy this photo slideshow that will walk through so many moments of his life.
Saturday in the park, I think it was the 4th of July. Saturday in the park, I think it was the 4th of July. People dancing, people laughing, a man selling ice cream, singing Italian songs. Such a long time for Saturday. Near, far,
my heart will go on and on. Love can touch us one time and last for a lifetime.
But I got a couple questions. Is there a bar up there where you've got a favorite chair, where you sit with friends and talk about the weather? Is there a place you go to watch the sunset? And oh, is there a song you just can't wait to share? Yeah, I know you'll tell me when I get there. Do you think of me? Do you wish that I would slow down? Are there some things that you've seen that feel like home now? Are you up there climbing trees, singing brand new melodies? I hope you are. I know you are. Is there a bar up there where you've got a favorite chair, where you sit with friends and talk about the weather? Is there a place you go to watch the sunset? And oh, is there a song you just can't wait to share?
Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open. I will love and have no fear. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, don't cry for me down here. I'm gonna walk with my granddaddy, and he'll match me step for step. And I'll tell him how I've missed him every minute since he left. And then I'll hug his neck. Yeah, when I get where I'm going, there'll be only happy tears. I will shed the sins and struggles I have carried all these years, and I'll leave my heart wide open.
We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
Say you don't know me, I recognize my face. Say you don't care who goes to that kind of place. Knee deep in the hoopla, sinking in your fight. Too many runaways eating up the night. Marconi plays the mambo. Listen to the radio. Don't you remember? We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. We built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. Built this city. We built this city on rock and roll.
Someone always playing corporation games. Who cares? They're always.
Well, Ben, if I didn't know better, I would have thought those younger pictures were you on the Rancho Buena Vista campus. Yeah, you guys look so much alike. That was a wild, wild connection. It's great to see life in pictures. It's great to hear about his life through a eulogy, and we're going to continue in sharing of Robert's life through his brothers and sisters, his wife, and daughter. Would you welcome his family up to continue in the sharing of Robert's life?
I really wasn't sure. I might not be able to. I met Bob shortly after moving to British Columbia, courtesy of my brother-in-law. Bob in a cabinet shop. The New Year's Eve poker party. Bob hated poker. Bob was an auxiliary firefighter and EMT. He had just come off a 3-day fire, and even after showering, he still breathed. But he was lots of fun to be around. He had crazy friends. He did so much with his friends and firefighters. But more than once, he left me in the middle of town without a ride home because the fire bells rang. Off he was to go fight a fire, and I had to find my way home. I lived with my sister and brother-in-law, also named Bob, and their kids. We had a condo right on the lake. By the summer, the 4 of us and their 2 kids had some of the greatest times on that lake, boating. I tell you, one time Bob decided to buy a boat, and it was a fast boat. So he had to know if he could ski behind it. So he put a wetsuit on. We were standing around with flasks of whiskey, my brother-in-law and I, and he got behind that boat, just pushed the ice away, and away he went. He was crazy. Fast forward, marriage, kids, and our life together. We had great friends that we shared camping trips, picnics, and kids' sports with. Bob was, above all else, a true family man. There wasn't anything he wouldn't do for friends and family. We were lucky to be able to take our kids on great vacations. Bob's best trip, as Megan mentioned, was when we went on a cruise. We visited Croatia, Turkey, all the Greek islands, Italy, and Rome, where he drove around like a madman with me hanging on the back of a moped. Crazy. I hung on for dear life. He loved his job, working for Deja Vu, even though at times he was gone for weeks at a time. When he traveled, he made a point of calling every night to talk to all of us about our day. He had to know how the kids were doing soccer, baseball, softball. But when he came home, he was all ours, and it was all family. Bob had a quick, funny wit about him and always came up with the craziest things that made me laugh. His one-liners were always amazing to me. We watched our children grow and celebrated in all their accomplishments, marriages, and children. He was a great man, father, and grandfather. Bob was my rock. Yeah.
I want to hear from his brothers, Ken and Rod. Are you guys want to join me on the platform and share some stories? And Sister Sarah, come on up, guys. Hopefully we don't have to pay Ken by the minute here, your hourly rate.
Hi, I'm Kendall, or Ken. I'm the oldest brother. I was 5 years older than Bob. And this is Rod, and he was 3 years older. And this is our sister Sarah, who was 2 years older. Now, we all live in Canada, where, of course, Bob was born and raised. And we understand that being Californians, and you're kind of cutting edge all the time, that this is actually being live streamed. So I want to pay proper homage to my brother, but I have to make sure first off that all of our family back in Canada watches, gets the right idea. So I want to call up my hair and makeup artist. Ellie, can you come, Ellie? Can you come and help me? Ellie? Oh, you doesn't want to come. She usually pats me on the head because when I come down here, she calls me Uncle Baldy. Oh, to be loved. So one thing about Bob that you may have gleaned through those pictures, from the time he was a babe, he always was smiling. He always had a cheery disposition. Our mom and dad, we came from a working class family. My dad worked in the post office. My mom, she raised 4 kids, but in addition to that, she worked summers in an army camp that we have in our local community, and in the kitchen, and in the fall, she worked in a packing house packing apples. So we were also blessed in as much as both sets of our grandparents lived in Vernon, and they came in, and we had the pleasure of knowing them, and Bob included, till we were adults. And also we had aunts, and one aunt in particular who even came up when they moved to Vancouver to help babysit us, help out Mom. And I find this hard to believe, but I was talking to her today, my Aunt Sharon, and she said, you know, her and one of her girlfriends that used to come, they always thought Bob was the sweetest and the best looking, and I find that hard to believe, but don't you? Yeah. So we lived together as a family in 3 different houses. The first house we lived in was built by my dad and some of my uncles and grandpas, and they built this house, and it was on a little acreage. And because the roots of the family came from the prairies and farming, my dad, he had to always have some livestock and animals around. So one thing, for example, I want to tell Bryn, you've got your favorite cow, Ella, but, you know, your Papa Bob's dad, he used to enjoy milking the cow. We had 1 cow, and when Bobby would come into the barn and look at him, he'd grab and he'd squeeze the milk right into his eye every time. Yeah, he did that. And the other thing we did is when we moved to a second house, which again was on about an acre of land, but we didn't have a barn on that property, but my dad decided in his wisdom that we would have some sheep in addition to dogs and cats and what. Well, because we didn't have a barn, what would happen is in the cooler winter months and the like, and in the spring when lambs came, he would bring all the lambs and put them in our basement. And I'll just suffice to say, excuse my French, but for my mom, it led to be a pretty shitty situation at times. And Bob, he loved to be down there with those lambs. And then the other thing, I guess you should know, Sam, you love hockey. You know, your Papa Bob, he liked to think he was quite the hockey player, and he was. But you and your mom and dad were saying how you shoot pucks and you would shoot downstairs, and you even ruined the new fridge or whatever it was downstairs. Well, that came from your Papa Bob, because him and brother Uncle Rod here, they used to play hockey up in the hallway and shoot pucks, and so you come from good stock in that regard. And the only other thing, you know, I should point out to you as a Canadian is that Bob loved all sports, and he was pretty good at it. But more than anything, he liked to participate and just be part of the team. But he was always on the A team, always on the A team. Like, good shot, eh, Bob? Hey, Bob, hey, next time, you know, pass the puck to me. Hey. So remember that. try to make the A team. The other thing I mentioned about the sheep, and Megan reminded me of this last night, one of his favorite tricks that he would do, and then Rod also reminded me that he also did it with calves. We would have calves the odd time. So we would take people, including Bob loved doing this, taking especially Sister Sarah and the like, putting her on one of the sheep or the calves, and then twisting the tail to see how long she could stay on. So Bob always had an affinity for animals. And I'm not just exaggerating, they seemed to sense that, and they had an affinity for him. So one of the things, we had a horse at one point, and this is in our third and last house before we all left home, and we didn't have a big pasture, but by coincidence our church did, which was just not too far behind our house. So we had a horse named Belle, and Rod and Bob, they shared that horse. And one of the things Rod was reminding me this morning is when we got snow in the wintertime, Rod had a paper route downtown, which was 10, 20 blocks away. So they would hook up Belle to a sled, and they would get in the sled and they'd go downtown and do Rod's newspaper route. So there you go with that. And I also remember then when we were sad to lose him to this good-looking blonde that he ended up marrying and came to California. But before, there was a brief stop in Tahoe, and I went down to visit him by myself one time. And he was telling me about his first experience. So remember, this is a guy who comes from humble roots and country boy. Oh, by the way, Kurbis in German means pumpkin. So he was the youngest pumpkin. And you guys talk about country bumpkins, but he was a country pumpkin. So Bob told me the story himself, and he said that the very first time he went to a big show in Reno, so you lived in, I think, close to Incline Village, wasn't it? And so they were celebrating something, and he went to this big show down at the MGM Grand in Reno. And he'd already got his tickets, and excuse me. My dad had a saying he always liked that he used with us, and it was the only kind of culture we got in our family is agriculture. And this story kind of illustrates that, because here was the country bumpkin, and he went to the show, and he paid his tickets, and the usher came up to him and apparently said, "Oh, welcome, sir. Would you like to sit closer?" And Bob looked at him and thought, "Wow, that's really neat. Yeah, I'd like to sit closer." Well, he didn't realize he had his hand up like this the whole time, you see. And so they walk halfway down, and, "Oh, do you want to sit closer?" Yeah. "Oh, yeah, I want to sit closer. I want to sit closer." Still didn't see anything. Well, I don't know. You'll have to ask Melissa later, but I think they got right to the front, and he still didn't clue in, so the guy just turned him around and took him back up to the back. So then, not to pick on my brother about that, but it was a couple of years later, and now he's got his own company. He's more sophisticated, and I had the opportunity to go to Tahoe on my own and visit, and he arranged, as my good brother, to get me tickets to a show at South Lake Tahoe to go see Liza Minnelli. And it was just me, and he couldn't come for work or some other reason. But I was pretty impressed, and so I went to the show, and Liza Minnelli put on this great show, and I thought, wow, Bob's really done a great job, and I got tickets right kind of front row center almost. Excuse me. And about halfway through the show, Liza Minnelli stopped the show, and she said, "You know, one of the greatest privileges I have as an entertainer is that people actually pay money to come and see me, and they come from all over the world. And tonight, someone is here from another country who's come to see me." And the Klieg lights came on, boom, and it was right on me. And I thought, oh my God, how did Bob arrange this? She said, I want to recognize this individual for coming this way and watching my show. And I want you to stand up And so I'm halfway out of my seat, and she said, Helen Reddy. And right behind me, Helen Reddy, who was a famous singer at the time, was sitting there. So I thought, well, Bob's not the only one who's the country bumpkin here. So, and I always bless him for arranging that great show for me. You know, later in life, when he had his issue with his kidney, and I say kidney because it turned out even he didn't know, he only had one. But he functioned well that whole time until it started to fail. And so your best opportunity for a perfect match are your siblings. So we got the call, and Sarah would have, doubtless, but she couldn't because she had a medical condition that prevented it. So Rod and I, they shipped up the lab tests from the hospital, and we went into the hospital in San Diego, and we went in the hospital and had the test done in Vernon and shipped it back, and get a call a day or two later, and she said, is this Kendall Kurbis? And I said, yes. She said, this is so-and-so from hospital in San Diego, and we have your test results back, but something's wrong. And I said, well, I don't know. Like, we did the tests, and we went in, and I don't know what's wrong. She said, well, it turns out when you go to be an organ donor, they look for 6 genetic markers, 3 from your mom's side, 3 from your dad's side, but there was only 5. So she asked me a bunch of questions, and then all of a sudden the light went on. She said, oh, that's okay then. We only had 5 markers because my mom and dad were cousins. So anyway, she said, I'll call you back in a couple of days. She called back, and she said, Kendall, she said, I have some good news and some bad news. And I said, well, like, this is my brother, so could you just, yeah. She said, well, the good news is you're a perfect match for your brother. I said, well, okay, well, I guess come down there. Wrong brother. Rod and I were a perfect match. But Bob, we were, I think it was 1 out of 5. Very, very low that and unusual that would happen. So, of course, God bless her, one of his children stepped up to the plate, and that happened. And that is one of the things I want to say about your family, Melissa. You know, you do beautiful crochet work, and I've seen what you've done. But something that you've done that's way more important is that Bob worked away from home for many, many years, didn't he? And so he would help to provide the resources, the materials, and you helped stitch together, the two of you that way, a wonderful, wonderful fabric of a family. And these last few years have been pretty tough, and we really appreciate it. We wish we could have been closer and helped, but I think, needless to say, God bless you for everything you did and your family, and it's time that you took a well-deserved rest. And I want to close by sharing with you a Bible verse that our mom used to say and gave us, and it's from Philippians 4, chapter 5. And it says, let everyone see that you are unselfish and considerate in all you do. And remember, the Lord is coming soon. Well, Bob was unselfish and considerate in all he did his life. And I'd be a hypocrite if I said I wish the Lord wouldn't have called him so soon. But the important thing is we know he's on the most important team of all right now. So thank you very much. I think my sister wants to say a few words.
Bob was a thoroughbred. He was high-spirited. He lived a life of adventure. He wouldn't back down if there was a challenge that came his way, and many did. Bob fell in love with Melissa. He fell hard, he fell fast. And the first time I met Melissa in Vernon, I just knew she was the one. There was so much chemistry. It was like a fire was igniting around them. And they were having so much fun and laughing all the time. And it lasted their entire life. Their marriage is something that should possibly be recorded in a book, because so many people are looking at how do I make this marriage work? They knew. And Bob loved Melissa with his whole heart and his family. He gave of himself unconditionally. There was no backing down. And when troubles came his way, be it health issues, be it issues with building permits or codes or employees, be it his, one of the worst things I personally thought he had to go through was when he had all his tools stolen in the container they were in. Someone had stolen his tools, but Bob would always get back in the saddle. So I salute Bob, and I salute Melissa, and God bless them both.
Megan, you had prepared a letter that you wanted to read. Come on up.
So before I knew I was going to be giving his eulogy, I had started writing this letter, so I'm sorry you have to hear from me twice today. I thought it would be easier if I did this like I'm speaking to my dad, so part of it will be me talking to him. Sorry. How lucky did I get to have someone I grieved so hard for because he loved so much? To be called your daughter has always been a privilege, and I will hold that privilege for the rest of my life. For the rest of my days here, I hope I live a life that you're proud of and one that you would have lived, full of love, fun, and laughter, and sweets. You were always intentional and present with us. You knew how to make us feel important, and you knew how to love us. You just knew how to dad. I know you are here with us today, and I know you are happy to see all of these faces here to celebrate the life you lived. It won't get easier to live without you, but I hope that with time we will learn how to look back at the memories and smile because they happened, and not because they're over. Dad, you gave us so many amazing fun memories, and I'm so grateful that God gave us you as a father and a papa. I'm going to apologize to Chase for this one. The day that we brought my dad home from the hospital to begin hospice, I was in the ambulance with him, and he hadn't spoke a word all day. He only had brief moments of being awake and occasionally mumbling curse words when we moved him in the bed. So when the ambulance hit the giant potholes on the road right before my parents' driveway, and he yelled out, "Fuck, God damn it!" His eyes shot open. It scared the young medic in the back with us, and it gave me a laugh because he always had such a sailor mouth on him, even till the end. As soon as I told him we were on the road right before his driveway, and he was almost home, he immediately looked so relieved. That moment gave me so much comfort. That moment gave me so much comfort, Dad, that you knew that you were coming home to be with all of us. I just want you to know that it's okay. We will be okay. You brought all of us so much peace in our times of struggle throughout our lives, and now it's your well-deserved peace for eternity. My dad didn't really keep up with the trends. He had attempted social media, Instagram and Facebook, but it was mostly just to stalk his kids and his grandkids. So when selfies first became a thing, my dad thought they were called Sophies. So he just kept calling them Sophies. And so it was just an ongoing joke with our family. And a couple of weeks ago, after he passed, I started going through my text messages with him. And Dad, I realized there was a common trend of you sending me Sophies. So I thought I would share them, if Joey could put them up. These are just a couple of them. I don't know what some of these are. I don't know the context because sometimes he just sent messages and he wouldn't say anything. I do know he was riding the tractor all day on that one. That's my veil from my wedding. He said, you can come over and get this or it goes in the trash. Ellie, those are yours. I don't know that one. There was nothing. Okay. I gave you the best ones, so. I remember being a kid and watching my parents with each other, and at the time, being grossed out by their public displays of affection. I'd see my dad grab and kiss my mom in the corner of the kitchen while she was trying to cook, and I'm sure I'd yell at you gross like my children do to my husband and I now. Looking back at this now, I'm glad I got to see how much he loved her and how frequently he showed her affection. It was things as small as that, and him always trying to surprise her with great gifts like jewelry in the bottom of her Christmas stocking or hidden in a big box filled with rocks to trick her. These things he did all the time showed us how much he loved our mother. His love for her was tremendous. As they got older, that affection changed into something different. If he was in the hospital and he was anxious or scared about something like a procedure, he would look for her in the room and he'd reach out his hand for her to hold. I watched him do that a lot the last couple of years. He just needed to hold her hand. So as much as my mom says that he was her rock, you were his boulder. He really has been a rock for all of us, and the amount of times that he was a rock for us and we had to lean on him, it took so much strength, and it was endless amounts of times for all of us. He allowed us to lean on him. He never broke down. He was incredible. So Dad, thank you for always being so strong and positive, especially when it came to Ellie. You were an amazing papa. You were the first family member to come into the NICU and to hold her. And even with all the lines and tubes that were attached to her, you just sat in that chair, no look of concern whatsoever, beaming down at her. I'll never forget watching how calm you were. It was just how you were, though always so calm, always had the ability to calm everyone down around you. And every time we hit a bump in the road with Ellie's medical journey, you never showed any concern, just strength and encouragement. You would just tell me that Ellie was going to be fine because she's a superhero. You were her biggest fan, and we often discuss the day that she will be free of her trach and the celebration that we would throw for her. I'm sad that you're going to physically not be here on earth to watch it, but I know you'll be with her every step of the way, and you'll be right there celebrating with us and cheering her on. I know my father died knowing that he worked hard and he did his best every day, knowing he built a family and raised his kids to be good people, knowing his mark will forever be left on this world. I like to think he died with absolute certainty that he was deeply loved by those who knew him. I love you, Dad, until we meet again.
Well, Bob did it. He got cuss words in church. He did it, guys. He also, I think this is the first memorial service where the picture that I got of the individual was holding Champagne. So, Bob, you did it. We like to have fun at Anthem. And as we close today, want to just share a couple words of encouragement. You know, Bob did grow up Lutheran, as his brother today shared a verse. I want to share another one with you. What's interesting, in the life of our church, we're 5 years old, young church, young pastor, young leadership. And so we haven't done a ton of memorial services, celebration of life services. And yet, in the last, 7-8 weeks, we've done 5 or 6. So it's been an interesting season. It's been an interesting season in the life of our church. I know in the life of our country over the last couple of years. And I've learned a lot as a leader, as a pastor, as a shepherd, about the grieving process, about what brings people together, about the healing process. And just want to share a couple words of encouragement. One of my favorite verses in all of Scripture comes from Paul's words to the church at Corinth. Corinth, in many ways, was a modern day or an ancient Las Vegas. You know, what happened in Corinth typically stayed in Corinth. And Paul started a church there, and he would write letters to encourage them because life was hard. And many of you know this. If you've lived any length of time, you know that life is hard. And life has a way of rattling who you are, how you view the world, your perspective, your faith, your hope, and your love. And he, in this beautiful letter, encouraging this church that he started, he closes chapter 13 by saying, "And now these 3 things remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love." And when you go through a tragedy of losing such a dear family member, it has the potential to rattle each and every one of these 3 beautiful things. First, let's talk faith. Faith is described in Hebrews as the confidence in what we hope for and the assurance of what we do not see. Faith in God, faith in what's good, faith in each other, faith in that this life that we've been given is very precious. And it's in these moments where it rattles our faith and yet also delivers us perspective. The pace of life right now is at an all-time high. I don't know if you feel that, but it feels like it's loud, it's busy, it's fast. I would say the number one thing I hear from people when I ask them how they're doing is if they just want to just satisfy the moment, they'll say good. But if they'll get a little bit more detailed, they'll say what? Busy. 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 And then you have moments like this. You see the pictures of his life. You hear about the adventure in his spirit. You see how he loved Melissa, you so much. I mean, the love of you guys is all over today's service. The faithfulness in your marriage. The belief and hope in raising your kids the right way. It's everywhere. And it gives perspective to how important that relationship is. You hear from his kids, his brothers and sister. You see how much family matters. You see how important relationships are. You hear how hardworking he is. And so while there's a temptation to have your faith rattled in God and what's good and what's beautiful in life, really the celebration of life should instill back into you faith in those things. I think that leaving here and living in that manner would be one of the greatest ways to honor his life, to continue his legacy. We move from there to hope. Even in the definition of faith, you see the word hope show up. Hope is this invisible thing inside of us that grasps a hold of the best, that we believe that the future has ultimately something beautiful in it. And yet oftentimes we look at the past, and the best way to rewrite even the worst mistakes of the past is to live in the present moment. That helps to shape the future. Hope. We desperately need it. Each and every one of us. And this kind of moment can rattle your hope. It has the potential to steal your hope. And my encouragement to all of us, both in faith and in hope, that even in this moment, this celebration, in a moment we're going to invite you to gather in the lobby and share in some of his favorite snacks. You'll see Bob the Builder cookies, you'll see brownies, and you'll share in stories and an embrace and laughter and tears all the more. And the goal today is to take a step forward in the healing process, to reimagine what faith could look like in light of this tragedy, to build back in one another hope. And of course, what Paul will write is the greatest of these is love. There are two forces in the world that are more powerful than anything else: fear and love. Those are the two most powerful forces in the world: fear and love. What's interesting is the Bible describes the reality that those two things cannot coexist. They are in direct opposition to one another. So where there is fear, love is squeaked out. And where there is love, fear has no place. Love is described as patient and kind. It's described as goodness and joy. It's described between us and God. It's described between our harmony with ourself, and it's described in Scripture as how we treat one another. The golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated. The great command: love your neighbor as much as you love yourself. We've even heard that in one of the stories today as Bob would hop on his tractor to mow his neighbor's lawn. Love. In this moment in time, I think our country needs to reimagine what love could look like. Love for people that vote differently than us. Love for people that look differently than us. Love for people that act differently than we expect them to act. Love for people around us, in front of us, to be present in a busy, fast-paced world. Again, the greatest way to honor somebody in their death is to change the way you see your life. My encouragement to every one of you is to instill back into your heart faith, hope, and the greatest force of all, love. Would you join me in prayer, praying a blessing over the family as they continue in the grieving process? God, we thank you. We thank you for who you are. We thank you for your goodness. We thank you for your presence. We thank you that you're here. You're described as being everywhere, and yet your presence here is ultimately what matters in this moment. God, we ask for a special blessing and favor, in particular over the family and especially over Melissa right now. To lose somebody that you've done so much life with, that you've built so much with. There's a void, no doubt. And God, we ask that that void would be filled with your peace, your presence, and reinstill in her faith, hope, and love. We ask for your favor over the friends that continue in the healing process, for everybody whose heart is broken after the sudden passing of Bob. We ask for this to be a moment in time where we share stories of who he was and ultimately experience the beauty of life. We ask for your presence here and your blessing over the family. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. As we close today's service, I want to invite you to our lobby where, again, we'll share in the refreshments some of Robert's favorite, and we'll continue in the celebration of life through greeting and meeting one another in the lobby from there. God bless you guys. Hope you enjoyed the celebration of life service. To those watching online, thank you so much for joining us. God bless all of you. And thank you so much again for being here. On behalf of the family and friends, we just want to remind you that your presence here was such an encouragement. God bless you.